Welcome everyone to episode 2 of Energy Tonight with Max Rice and Ryan Dickey. Last week was not called Energy Tonight, but we're a Tonight Show. We're kind of edgy, so we do things like that. Switch up the name.
Yep.
So we're Energy Tonight this week. And we thought this name better fit our style because we are going to be being broad. We are loose. Almost dropped an S-bomb last week. Never know what will happen on the Energy Tonight show.
Yep.
And also symbolically, at nighttime is when energy is most. It proves its worth. When you're missing, when visibility is not there, extreme weather, extreme circumstances, that's when you really need that electricity and natural gas.
Yeah, and I mean it never stops. It's not like other markets that shut off at close of business. We're the gas and electric market's running all day, every day with a short break on between 5 and 6 and short break on Sunday. So
you can get by in the day.
The clock.
Absolutely, you can get by in the day, but at night you're vulnerable.
Right.
And also energy today was taken, so that's another important reason. So tonight we got a lot of crazy news this week that we want to cover. And first I want to cover a piece of news that isn't really in the news. And there was a major ransomware attack in the natural gas pipeline in America. And the reason why I can't give specifics to you, Ryan, is because the news and the government isn't giving specifics. They literally said, and I'm going to get the quote right here, because this is a really funny way to start off an article. They said a recent ransom cyberware attack caused a natural gas company, they won't name the company, to shut down a pipeline for 2 days, according to an alert from the Department of Homeland Security. The Department of Cybersecurity Infrastructure Security Agency, CISA, said yesterday it responded to the incident, but the agency did not say where or when the attack occurred. So they didn't say where and when, but it did shut down a pipeline for 2 days. And further in the article, and I'll put it in the comments, it said it was a simple email hack. It wasn't a major like operation. It was a hack from an email, and that the natural gas industry does not have safety precautions, and that there were 4 similar hacks last month, including one with the infamous Burisma holding company. If anyone remembers that company from the news, they experienced a similar hack last month when this happened this week, but we don't know where and who.
So this started with an email.
It did. So it's probably someone in part of a huge corporation, one person in the company clicked on an email, probably clicked a link, and then they were able to access everything. And so Ryan, what do you think? What do you think the impacts would be if this were to happen more often?
Yeah, and I think this is something the government's very aware of. This is a real threat that the U.S. recognizes as something that we need to take preventative action against, right? Because there's been a lot of studies done on what would happen to the United States without electricity. If we completely lost electricity, and it's some pretty scary stuff. And gas being one of our primary resources for generating electricity and generating power and generating heat in a lot of businesses. It would be a huge problem if we had a cyber attack that made it difficult to deliver power and gas to businesses. So of course that could have safety effects and impacts on the country, but also economic. Businesses don't have the ability to fire up their machines. Our economy starts to sink pretty quickly. So it's a real threat, and it's something we've got to be aware of. And I think it's only going to get worse.
Oh, it is. A couple of blackouts, because as we become more dependent on electronics, everything gets more smart, we become more reliant on technology. And even to speak to your economic point, there were a few blackouts over the summer in New York that had it was hundreds to billions of dollars of economic impact from just a couple hours. And it's funny because they actually kind of made a movie on this, Die Hard 4, Live Free or Die Hard, where a hacker takes out the electric grid, I believe, or the internet or something similar. But as you said, the government studies are scarier than that movie. There was one government study that said we would be eating people within a month without electricity.
Wow.
Yeah, because we rely on electricity really to protect us from the cold. I live in Chicago. You're in Ohio. Yep. So we definitely need that natural gas.
We need it.
Yeah, and then also for food, we really aren't farming and hunting. We really are reliant on electricity to cook. So that was a scary story. Write your Congress people. talk to your natural gas companies to tell them not to accept sketchy emails.
Right.
So that was a
Yeah.
big story. The other big story, I'm not sure that it's also not in the news too much, is the coronavirus. I'm just kidding. It's
I was
pretty
gonna
big
say
story. Yeah, but
it's
it's had a
everywhere.
huge effect on energy, and the immediate effect is because of China. Is they were already committing to spend $50 billion on importing energy from America, and because we really don't know what's kind of like the natural gas hacking. We really don't know the true extent of the damage of the coronavirus in China, but we do know that it's decreased demand.
Yeah.
So we might not be getting that $50 billion that they were committing,
Yeah.
which, yeah. And I'm scared for their people too, but there has been an immediate increase in demand, and we've seen it in all energy, natural gas and oil sectors.
Hmm.
A lot of
Yeah.
stocks have tanked over the last few weeks.
Absolutely. Yeah. And I mean, just going along with our conversation about storage, last week, and how we have, an increase in storage on a weekly basis because demand levels just aren't there. It's a supply and demand issue. And, when we're adding another question mark of demand into, the mind of analysts, we see the market come down, right? And we've already experienced that. So it'll be interesting to see, if and how the coronavirus grows and the impact that it has here in the U.S. on all kinds of levels, because we're already seeing a huge impact. If you keep up with the stock market, you can see this has been one of the worst weeks ever, right?
Oh,
You know, we're
absolutely.
we're
Especially the
down
energy
we're
sector.
down 800 points in the Dow Jones today as we speak, and we've already lost 1,000 this week. So, that alone shows how much of an impact that this is having on us.
So on the flip side, though, for consumers, isn't that a good thing for consumers in the short term?
Depends how you look at it. What do you think?
I think it's like kind of a strike while the iron's hot type situation, because we're going to see a lot of energy companies fail, unfortunately. Like another recent piece of news is that Massachusetts reports that there's been a 30% decrease in solar energy jobs.
Hmm.
And just even from alternative energy to natural gas being low, oil being low, we're going to see a lot of just people shut down wells, companies crumble, and just
Yep.
production. And it's going to take some time for the market to readjust. So I
Absolutely.
think we're going to have a year. That's what the
Hmm.
EIA predicts. But I for once agree with the government.
Yeah.
And especially if coronavirus hits America, which is a big question mark. I
Yep.
do not know. And
Yeah, and
that's
I mean, it seems, it almost seems inevitable at this point, seeing that there's been confirmed cases in Italy, and in Italy being one of the, main tourist attractions of the world. You have to think there's a handful of Americans there right now, that will be
absolutely.
coming back home. So I think it's only a matter of time, and we can only pray for the cure. But we do need to be aware of the impacts that we're going to see immediately as a result.
Yeah, thanks for saying that, Ryan, because I do want to stress it to everyone watching that we do have a heart, even though
Yeah,
we do got to talk to the market effects of the coronavirus.
right,
That we do hope it stops, whether it be good for customers and for energy companies
right.
with the coronavirus. So that was big in the news. What else was in the news? Yeah, so natural gas. So what about the specific effect on the natural gas? I think that we should report that of what are
Yeah,
the federal national natural gas prices? Because
yeah.
last week we were saying it was crazy. How about this week?
Yeah. Let's just talk about natural gas as a whole.
Yeah.
A brief synopsis. Pretty steady week. The storage report the working gas came in at 2,200 BCF. The estimate was at about 2,190. So right where analysts expected it to be. There was a net decrease of 143 BCF from the week before. And we're 180 above the 5-year average. So we can already see that we've got more storage than we have over the last 5 years, which is no surprise because that's been an increase over time already. But steady in our storage, which means that weather has been steady. When you see a big increase in storage numbers, typically that means, we're expecting some harsh weather to come. But I guess that leads us into where we're at with the weather. You natural gas bulls out there who are hoping for a run back up, it's not looking like that's going to happen for you anytime soon, unfortunately. I'm a natural gas bear as a consultant who's looking to procure for my customers. I'm loving seeing this downward movement. But this weather report was really positive for us. It shows, that over the next 10 to 15 days, we're going to have increasingly more mild weather. And also this winter is looking like it could be the warmest winter of all time.
Well, yeah, I
Um,
think last January was the hottest January in the last 5 years.
yep.
And I looked at the long-term forecast. It seems like, as you said, everywhere it's going to be milder to warmer except a few places. Like I think
Right.
that like Maine, Alaska, and a little bit of Florida.
Exactly. So, the volatility that we've seen over the last 6 months has simply been a back and forth of weather predictions. Like, hey, it's actually going to be a harsh winter. Boom, storage numbers shoot up, supply and demand has a new disconnect, and the market shoots up, right? And then you say, oh, it's going to be a mild winter. Oh, shoot, we put too much gas in storage. We need to sell that off. Market comes back down. So we've just kind of seen the ups and downs of that over the last 6 months. And it appears now that it's leveling out and we're trending down. And, a lot goes into that, but it's simply put, it's supply and demand, and we're so steady on supply right now because demand is steady.
And interesting enough, I saw there was an interesting analysis where it said that the calm weather has been a bigger factor to storage and demand more so than coronavirus. So I
Yeah,
thought that was very interesting.
absolutely. Yeah, and I mean, I think weather is always going to be the biggest thing that we're looking at when it comes to natural gas. I think it's just the biggest driving force right now, and the only unpredictabilities that we really have that are going to put us into a position that can be scary to where there's not enough gas to go around because we haven't pulled enough, is going to be from harsh weather. The last time that happened was a polar vortex in 2014. We talked about that last week on the show, and that's something that's still in the back of my mind. Someone who was in the industry at that time, it was a nightmare of a week. So,
Absolutely.
I think it's going to continue to be weather dependent, which is just frustrating because the experts in the weather industry just are always off. So, it's tough, but I think we need to continue to monitor weather to have a better idea of where gas is going.
Well, I've made peace with what you said, and it's accept that it's important to be educated, but to know what you can't know.
Right.
And so that's why I have a very conservative approach to buying energy. But
Yeah,
there was an
absolutely.
interesting stat that I was looking into gambling, and I'm not gambling.
Okay.
But it was a study of the successful gamblers versus the gamblers that fail and end up on the street and homeless,
Yeah.
and the difference between the millionaires that have penthouses living in Vegas is they win 55% of the time, and the homeless bankrupt gamblers win 45% of the time.
Yeah.
So that information really could just be the difference between being Batman and being a Batman villain or
Right.
being
I know what you're saying.
absolutely. So yeah, even though we do kind of have this cynical, we can't know the weather, it still is very important to read up on the weather. It's funny, the question that I asked last week, the if I gave you $10 billion to spend on energy, how $10 billion, how would you spend it? I posed that on Facebook, and I said the best answer would get a farmer's almanac of 2020,
Yeah.
and I have to give that to Xiaohai Guo. I got a bunch of great answers on it.
Okay.
So he says nuclear fusion.
Gotcha.
That's something that like you would need a lot of money to get going.
Right. Right. I
So
have to think you'd agree with that as well.
I mean, there's a bunch. Like honestly, 10 billion sounds like a lot, but I want to do a lot.
Yeah.
I want a hyperloop. I want high speed rail. Yeah.
Gotcha.
So,
Okay.
more news that I forgot to mention is there is a bipartisan bill in Virginia that I want to get your reaction on. They're trying to actually deregulate energy in Virginia fully, and it's getting bipartisan support, but it's beyond deregulation. It seems like they want to eliminate the capacity market, deregulate energy, and then provide assistance for people that can't afford to pay their utilities. So it's the perfect combination of
Okay. Hmm. So you're saying they want to dissolve capacity, provide a payment assistance program, and you're saying just handle deregulation through their market. Is that what they're proposing? I'm not familiar with this, with what's going on over there.
Yeah, no, it's the Virginia Energy Reform Act, I believe. If you're, oh, it's here. I'm sorry. It's the
And I know Virginia's been tossing around deregulation for quite some time, but seeing that they do plug into PJM, so what are their plans with capacity?
here. I'm trying to read up here because
Okay.
here's the problem with legislation in general is it's like when you're in the crafting phase, there's so much like that begins that won't end in there.
Hmm.
Because I don't think controlling capacity is generally a smart thing for governments
Right.
because it's too complicated and they end up messing it up and
Yep.
it leads to literally natural disasters and
Yep.
emergencies. But that
Yeah.
is on.
For those of you on the show who may be unfamiliar with capacity, capacity basically, you know, um, it prevents blackouts, right? Capacity was introduced to, the electric grid to help prevent blackouts. Obviously, we spoke a little bit earlier of what a major blackout could look like for the U.S. So, with that knowledge in mind, folks in this industry and the government, is very focused on, making sure that we have the capacity to avoid a blackout. So, energy customers, depending on where you're at, pay a certain cost for their, capacity related charges, which is, a different value for each customer based off how much, demand that they're, putting into the grid. So that's measured on the 5 hottest days of the summer. They're looking at your meter to say, hey, how much are you taking from the grid? We need to decide how much we're charging you, right? So those are your capacity related costs, which is just complicated because you got to have enough money to make sure that those blackouts don't happen. So a lot of that money is going into updated infrastructure and reserve and intel and stuff like that. But it's been a toss up over the years because capacity was just introduced PJM not too long ago. So
It's a really hard math problem because as we said, weather is the most important indicator of usage. And if you pump 1 kilowatt too much into the grid, if there's 1 kilowatt more of demand, the entire thing blows up. And
right,
so it's best for professionals to come up with that formula. As Ryan says, typically it's 5 days over the summer. But yeah, no, so it kind of scares me. And I have their platform right here. It's the Virginia Energy Reform Act, but but it has bipartisan support, so it is promising. And they
okay,
want to phase out wholesale capacity markets. So it seems like they don't want to completely abolish them immediately, but eventually, which I'm not 100% against if they find out a better way to do the
right,
calculation. But usually the way they do it is they just increase the tax to cover their base, and
right,
that's not good for consumers. But
no,
here's the platform here. The bill isn't 100% yet. They're in the debating stage. They want to establish a well-designed, competitive retail electric market. Good, I'm for that. That's just energy deregulation, taking it away from the utility
right,
dominion. They want to establish an independent grid operator. So that kind of goes to the capacity question. They
right,
want to establish a streamlined and uniform interconnected standards. So once again, they're taking the capacity side serious. Implement performance-based regulation, which seems like consumer protection. They want to establish a low-income bill assistance and weatherization program. So that's once again a social program to help out people probably in extreme weather. We had a lot of deaths in Chicago last year when there was a negative degree weather
yeah,
for a couple of days. They want to implement an all cost effective energy efficient standard. That seems carbon climate related. And they want to ensure additional consumer protections and education. That seems like wasteful spending. That's usually what that means. Just an agency to teach people, which could be
right,
good or could be bad. Fully integrate grids, markets, and operations. So that just sounds like another agency or more money to an agency to make sure smoothly, and to phase out wholesale capacity markets. So this would be a very impactful bill.
yeah,
Completely change
absolutely.
the way energy is done in Virginia.
Yeah, and it seems like Virginia's taking it very seriously, but like other states who are considering deregulating any market, but specifically energy, you know they seem to want to tread lightly, right? Because you've got all the people, and you got all the citizens who are just weary of change, right? People don't like change, and when you say you're going to do something differently, they're initial thought is, how could this go wrong? So it seems like, with this bill, they're trying to cover every single base and make deregulation seem a lot more complicated than it really is, when in reality, it's good for consumers, and we've proved that, in many different markets. And I think, they may be better off just modeling, the deregulation of the state after, other states that have had success with it, like Illinois, Ohio, Pennsylvania, markets that have been around for a long time, New York, right? And, you look at each of these markets, and it's pretty simple, right? You have your utility companies handling the transmission and distribution and the infrastructure, and then you have your suppliers and power aggregators and brokers within there on the other side, right? They're all regulated by the Utilities Commission of the state, Virginia should look to set up in the same way, instead of, putting a bunch of money towards agencies that are going to regulate this to make sure that nothing goes wrong, when really they could just, reach out to some other states, say, hey, what are you guys doing to manage this and make sure things go smoothly, and, follow suit. So it seems like a little bit of unnecessary spending, but I do understand the wariness going into that, simply from a consumer perspective of just not really knowing how it works. But I'm just happy that they're open-minded to it, because it is good for our economy.
It is. And there's a Democrat sponsor and a Republican sponsor. And as you said, a lot of it is in the bill to just satisfy certain districts and voting blocks. Yep. Because I 100% agree with you. The more you need the checks and balances, because that's one of the biggest myths about energy deregulation, is it's extremely regulated and overregulated by multiple agencies, the federal, local, and state level. And so it's best to kind of not reinvent the wheel, because of exciting nonetheless, because it really does seem like it's moving forward.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. So when is a decision going to be made on that?
It's currently being debated on the House. There was movement on it like last month in January. And so there's a great website that I'll put in the link where you can sign a petition and reach out to Virginia State House people.
Okay.
Because it would be great for that.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah,
I don't live there, but I support people not spending extra money everywhere.
Yeah.
Average American has $4,000 in their bank account. So every penny counts.
Absolutely. I couldn't agree more. I was just reading last week, Missouri is not too far from, potentially being deregulated.
We'll put them a link too. They had a senator that put out some legislation.
Yep.
I think they debated it last year on the floor, but it's just been kind of stuck on the floor. So anyone, like literally, state reps don't get as many calls and letters as people think they do. Right. Give them a call. We'll put the links in the comments, and tell them that you support energy choice, especially if you live in Missouri, because that's the one. I live in Illinois, and that's the one thing that we have over Missouri is electric prices.
Yeah.
We do a lot of business on the border of Illinois and St. Louis.
Right.
And that's one of the very few reasons why business would stay in Illinois.
Right. And just from a cost of doing business standpoint, if you're an organization that has any kind of, substantial spend on your energy costs, if you're smart and savvy, you're looking at the state that you're deciding to put a new plant in or a new office in, and you're saying, okay, what are the energy costs like in this market? Oh, it's fully regulated. I don't have any, influence over what my costs are. Maybe I should just go a few miles across the border and set up here, right? So that, if you're looking at 15-25% difference in cost, a business will make a decision based off where they want to pay their taxes, based off the, the energy cost. So, it makes sense on a lot of levels, right?
It does. And those decisions can make or break towns and communities.
Absolutely.
A business, a plant that's going to bring 200 jobs to a small town.
Absolutely.
It's not going to hop over the border because of energy costs.
Yep.
But yeah, so that one actually is, it's slowed down, but that is a possibility. The Virginia one seems to be closer to the finish line, but Missouri, let's give it a push. All of our energy listeners.
For sure.
Yeah. So last week we asked the Bezos question, and I am going to honor that prize. Do you have any other questions that we should ask our audience for a prize? I'll give out a book too.
Man, I don't know. Anything come to mind for you? Maybe we could.
We
could have everybody give their own analysis of what the natural gas market is going to do between now and next Friday.
I was gonna say, what if they could predict? If they can make a prediction, and
Yeah.
that would be easier because I was biased for last week's question. It was
Okay,
completely
so as we speak, we are trading at 171.4. Right.
wow. So we're even down. It was 173 when I was looking this morning.
Yep.
That's
So I
crazy.
mean, yesterday's storage report. For those of you that don't know, the Henry Hub,
Yeah.
releases storage every Friday at 10:30. The EIA will put their report out. So yesterday when that went through, we saw a big drop. We saw the market come down a little over 5%, and that's carried over into today. And really, it's working hard to break through that 70-cent mark right now, $1.70 of technical resistance that we talked about last week. It did touch 168, showing that it's willing to break through there, but it hovered right back up to 171. So I've got my own analysis I won't share now. But yeah, how about whoever has the the best analysis on the market and is the closest to the price at the start of our show next Friday
Absolutely.
will win.
I think I'm gonna get another book. This isn't Oprah. You're not getting a car.
Okay.
If someone was disappointed with the almanac, I'm sorry.
Yeah, this is episode 2, guys. We're
Yeah,
not giving out cars yet. You're gonna get books, but
you're gonna get books.
we'll get
Exactly.
there.
And yeah, we'll both put in guesses too. You'll have to get me a book if I get it right.
Deal.
Absolutely. Well, thank you so much, everyone, for listening. I'm
Yeah.
excited for next week of Energy Tonight. That's what we are. We're gonna have some guests on. It appears like if you know anyone too that's in the industry and you want to hear from, let us know.
Yep.
All the links we mentioned will be in the comments.
Yep. Anything you'd like to hear on future shows, we're always welcome feedback. So feel free to leave in the comments. And again, if you would like to be featured on our show, reach out. We can have a conversation.
Please do. That's what it's about. Conversation and
Absolutely.
fun. This is Tonight Show. Loose. We'll
Yep.
play some games. We'll juggle.
Yep.
We'll review some candles. Just who knows? We're
That's
unpredictable.
right. You never
Have a
know what
good
you're
one,
gonna get on
everyone.
Energy Tonight, man.
Guess that gas price. Have a good one, everyone.
Yep. Take it easy.
All right, bye.
Cool.
Cut.
27
Right,
minutes.
perfect.